Hi everyone, my name is Alberto Guerrero and I am a product manager here at EnergyCap specializing in interval data. Today we're here to talk about your journey towards doing energy management with interval data. Okay, so how we're going to do that? We're going to introduce EnergyCap's products and services, brief introduction there. Then we're going to talk about your journey, so where you're at, where you want to be, and the steps in between. We're going to summarize that as a project timeline. And then finally, I'm going to present you the interval data readiness checklist that you can use to refer back to what we talked about in this short webinar, okay? Uh, so EnergyCap has three main products: utility management, Carbon Hub, and SmartAnalytics. Utility management on the left is our flagship product, the one that EnergyCap is mostly known for, and that is powered by one of the services below called Bill Capture. So what EnergyCap does is, EnergyCap Utility Management does is take the data from your utility bills and allow you to do portfolio level energy and sustainability reporting. On the other side, on the right-hand side, you have SmartAnalytics, which is our interval data product, the one that we'll be focusing on today. And this product is about real time, responding quickly to events, right? And we'll dig into this a little bit in the next slide. The third one is the one in the middle, Carbon Hub, which allows you to take the data from utility management, from your utility bills, and from SmartAnalytics or your sensors and meters, and calculate your emissions figures, right? So what we call greenhouse gas accounting. So those are the three products. Let's dive into SmartAnalytics, and this is a nice way to put what it does: capture, monitor, analyze. First bit, and it's a bit that we're going to be focusing on today, is how to get the data into SmartAnalytics, okay? So there are multiple ways. You can drop CSV files, or also called flat files, into an FTP location. We have an agreed format that we can process from there. We have open APIs that you can use to post JSON packets, and that will be processed. There is also an agreed format there. We also have some data integrations, and we also have hardware that is already compatible with our software and it can connect directly to it. The next bit is monitor, right? So it's the system doing work for you. It's as the data comes in, it's analyzed, it detects outliers. If you wish so, it can notify you about those outliers. It can also notify you about specific events you want to know about. For example, my demand reached this level, or I used this many kilowatt hours during this day or this week or this month, right? And notify you about those events, right? The system working for you again. And then analyze, right? Interval data is overwhelming, or can be overwhelming, right? You have not one reading per month, but now one reading every 5 minutes or every 15 minutes or every half hour or every hour, right? It's a lot of readings, right? So you need the right tools to look at this data to be able to combine this data together. And that's what the analyze part is. The right tools for slicing and dicing this data, and also for reporting to other stakeholders and to other systems within your organization, right? So let's talk about that journey, right? We want to know where we're headed, where we're at, and the steps in between, so we have a successful journey, okay? So the first step in that journey is about learning and scoping. You need to know the basics about interval data, right? Which are the commodities and parameters that are relevant to me, right? Is it just gas? Is it just electricity and gas? Do I need to track water as well? Are there other process parameters that are important to me? So maybe some temperatures, some pressures, some flow rates, some room temperatures, outside parameters, right? Which level of granularity do I need? Am I okay with hourly data? Am I okay with 15-minute data? Am I okay with daily averages, right? Or daily totals, right? So that's something that we need to determine, right? And also part of this is knowing which are the benefits that you're trying to extract out of this solution, right? Am I trying to save costs? Am I trying to manage my demands or reduce my demand charges, for example? Am I just trying to gather the data so that I can do sustainability reporting? So it can be one, it can be the other, it can be all three of them. There can be other reasons why you are doing this, but it's important that you have this in mind when you start, right? Then also the scope of the project. How small do we want to start? Do we want to start with a small site, maybe a reduced number of uh, meters, right? Those main meters, right? Those big hitters. Do we want to start bigger? What's the timeline for deploying this solution? What's the budget that we have available for all the things that we're going to talk about? So investing in hardware, investing in services, installer services, investing in data integration, and so on, right? So that is learning and scoping. Now, the starting point. So we need to know where we're at. We know where we're headed. We need to know where we're at. And this is what the site survey is about. So documenting what you have in place and its capabilities, right? Do we have meters? Which are the protocols that they speak? Is it BACnet or Modbus? Do they have, maybe they already have data export capabilities? Do we need a gateway to connect these meters to EnergyCap SmartAnalytics, right? Um, maybe we determine that some of the areas that we want to monitor don't have any hardware, or maybe they have hardware that doesn't have any communication capabilities, or hardware that doesn't track the parameters that we need, right? So determining this is part of what we're doing here in the site survey. Also, where are these devices going to be installed? Some places, some things might go inside the building, some things might go outside the buildings. Some considerations are aesthetics, right? Is this an important thing based on where the devices are going to go, right? Sometimes it is, sometimes it is not. Okay, so an important element, because this is our solution, is a cloud solution, is how are we going to get that data from your site, from your facility, or your site and facilities to the cloud where our software lives, right? So determining is there connectivity on site? Is it secure? Can we rely on this internet access, or we need to source independent internet access, right? For some of the devices, they might be located in rooms where there is no power, right? So we might be considering battery powered instead of mains powered devices, right? And of course, if we go with something that is wireless, we need to consider distance, interference, and how this all is gonna scale up, right? Um, so these are what we call potential roadblocks, things that might get in the way of you actually deploying these successfully. So things to keep your eyes out for, right? Critical requirements. Okay, these are things that you need to start discussing early on in the project and not wait too long before you get the right people engaged. And I'm talking about your IT and cybersecurity team, right? You want to make sure that you are complying with their policies, that any changes that need to be made, they are aware of them, and you have a way to navigate those. So I'm talking about, do we need to set up a VPN for remote access and for configuring these devices? Do we need to change any firewall rules to allow these devices to communicate with EnergyCap's servers, right? Which are our data storage and retention policies? Where are the servers located, right? Do they need to be in a specific country, for example? How are users going to log in into this solution? Do we need SSO in place? Are all the transmission protocols being used encrypted or not, right? So you will get a lot of answers, a lot of questions from them, and you need to have the answers and potentially look for solutions to some of the things that you don't have a straight answer for, right? Um, so those are critical requirements. These projects are normally a collaboration between different teams. You have your internal stakeholders. So these are the people interested in having this solution up and running. So your energy managers, your facilities managers, your sustainability leads, right? You also have, we just talked about them, IT and cybersecurity teams. Uh, and you have the people doing the installation and troubleshooting of the devices that are there and the devices that are going to be added to the installation, or the devices that are going to be upgraded. Sometimes you might need to engage external expert or contractors for installing the hardware. Sometimes for maybe there is some data integration project that is not meters per se. It might be a database, it might be a SCADA system that you have on site. So you might need to hire some uh, consultancy, software consultancy that can help you achieve this integration, right? So make sure you start building this team early on, right? There are, on the left here, you have the stakeholders who are usually on board with you to get this project across the line. So that is the owner or operator of the building, the energy manager, who is going to be the main user of this software, right, or this solution, the people that are supplying you the hardware, the people who are installing that hardware, and Energy Cap as your software provider, right? On the other side, though, you have some people who might not be as involved in the project, but have a lot of leverage, right? They can make things very difficult for you. So you need to get these people involved, make sure that they understand why this is valuable, and try to answer their questions as soon as possible. So IT, we already talked about them, but you also, part of your project might be interfacing with some utility meter or getting access to a cabinet where a utility meter is, right? So that might involve dealing with a utility company, which are usually slow to respond and difficult to deal with. So you want to get that going as soon as possible, right? If this is a tenant occupied building, you also want to get those tenants informed about what you're doing, what you're trying to achieve, how it might be beneficial for them, et cetera, et cetera. So these people are helping instead of becoming a block for your project, right? Um, Keep in mind facility specific procedures and rules. What do I mean by that? If it's a school, right, we might be we people might need vetting to go in there. People might need to go there specific hours, maybe after hours, maybe during the weekends. If it's a hospital, we might have, things like shutting down power are very challenging. So that needs to be discussed in advance. Uh, you might need to test people. You might need to go there at a specific times. People might need to wear specific personal protective equipment, such as masks and things like that. And if your deployment involves facilities in different places, right? Keep in mind that what worked or what was possible or what was the way to go in one place might not be the same in this other state, in this other city, in this other country, right? So different places, different ways of doing things, different codes and regulations. So keep that in mind. Here, the key is communication. It needs to be good and timely. You're looking for engagement, commitment, and clarity. All right, so now we are preparing to get this hardware that we determined that we need in place, right? And by hardware, I mean meters, gateways, and sensors. Uh, I've laid out here 4 different manufacturers that happen to be already compatible with our software, right? IQ Energy from Canada, they manufacture multi-channel power meters that also have digital inputs for pulse signals. Pulse signals can come from gas meters, heat or thermal meters, other power meters, water meters, etc. So many different devices have this kind of output that can be hooked up to one of IQ Energy's multi-channel power meters. They also have a gateway that can connect or retrieve information from your existing Modbus meters, plus pulse signals, and on the other side connect uh, to the Energy Cap servers to deliver the data, right? Watchers, they are from Australia. They manufacture 4G enabled electricity meters. These can be quite handy when you are working in a building or in a site that is remote. It can also be handy when you need independent access to the internet. So the site is not providing internet access for your devices, right? devices have a SIM card on board that addresses that issue. Epicenter from Ireland, they manufacture a wireless system that is not limited to electricity, but can be used to monitor many other things. So pulse signals, analog signals, temperature, humidity, Modbus devices, plus, of course, electricity or power meters, right? Uh, One of the selling points for Epicenter is that their system is wireless. So if you have a deployment that involves different areas, different buildings, different rooms within the building, you don't need to create these wired connection between the different rooms, etc. If it's not there, you can rely on their wireless solution to do that. eGauge is an electricity meter manufacturer from the US. They manufacture multi-channel electricity meters that have other capabilities that and all of them, all four of them are already compatible with EnergyCap SmartAnalytics, right? Make sure for hardware that you engage with your either internal electrician or external contractors for their installation. So you get them familiar with what they are installing and how to install them, et cetera, in case they are not, okay? Now, as part of your project, you might also need to do some data integration, smaller project, let's say, right? So that might mean that you have a local database or a local SCADA system that where you have data that is important for you and you want to transfer to SmartAnalytics. So this might involve some small software implementation to transfer those CSV flat files to our server. It might involve connecting to our APIs, right? So it's important to request sample files. And it's important also to, again, deal with IT to make sure that everything that you're doing to transfer these data is in accordance with their requirements, okay? Now, the deployment, right? So this is where we get to installing the meters and gateways where they need to go, configuring them to send data to the analytics platform. So that's EnergyCap SmartAnalytics, testing system functionality. And what I'd like to emphasize here is data accuracy, making sure that what you're getting on this end matches what you have in the device, that is validated data, because there's nothing worse than analyzing data that is wrong. Okay, so make sure that the project doesn't stop when you get data across, but when that data is actually validated and it makes sense. All right. Number 9 is about, okay, we invested a lot of energy and money in this project. Let's see how successful it is. So part of that is establishing a baseline where we were before we got this thing in here and defining some KPIs or success metrics that we can use to quantify how valuable this project, this investment is, right? That return on investment, right? So, and that part of those, some of those KPIs could be, did we reduce our peak demand charges? Are we detecting and reacting quicker to equipment inefficiencies, failures, unexpected events? Are we improving our energy use intensity, EUI? So that is your energy usage per unit of floor area. So that could be your kilowatt hours per square feet or kilowatt hours per square meter, depending where you are, right? So those are some just examples, right? It be each industry, each location will have their own metrics, but those are some very, very popular ones, okay? So that's the evaluation piece. Engagement, we want to make sure that this investment is valuable for the whole organization, not only for the few or the team of energy managers that convinced the company to invest in this. So part of that is training and documenting the system, right? Training other people within the company and documenting how to use the system, how to keep it alive, and what we can get out of it. Okay, so spend time doing this. It will be easier to keep the system, the investment in the system going if more people are using it, if more people are extracting value out of it. It might be your financial department, it might be your energy department, it might be your sustainability department, it might be your operations department that benefit from this. It doesn't have to be just your energy people who are using and benefiting from this system. All right. Um, Now, maybe you started small because the budget was tight and the timeline was short, but now let's say that it was a success. You want to take it to other sites. Part of that is evaluating this pilot, right? And that's where your KPIs come into play. You want to know how successful this was, which lessons did we learn from this pilot project that we can maybe carry over to the next projects, right? And we're always prioritizing the highest impact locations, right? So maybe the locations with the highest use, maybe the locations with the highest costs, maybe the locations where reducing emissions is a top priority for one reason or the other. So finally, this one thing that tends to happen is that once the project is implemented, it's kind of forgotten. We want to make sure that the system is its performance is reviewed often, that ROI is assessed constantly so that we know that we are getting a return on this investment. You know, there will be ongoing costs for keeping the system alive. So we need to make sure that we're getting a return on this investment, right? One thing that tends to happen is there is a lot of excitement at the beginning. You get big breakthroughs, big savings, big findings, etc. And those tend to get smaller over time. But it's important that we don't fall back to the old, right? To how things were before we had the system. So one thing is to get those breakthroughs in, avoid falling back, returning to the old, and then achieving those smaller improvements over time. So that is the continuous improvement philosophy, let's say, right? So that, on year two, we might not be getting 10 or 15%, but we might be getting 1 or 2% year after year on efficiencies here and there that are really, really important. But more importantly, not going back and losing that 10 or 15% that we achieved on year one, right? Part of these, an important part of this is reporting to other stakeholders so they know how the system is being used and the value that we're getting out of it on a continuous basis, right? One nice way of summarizing everything I just said is putting these as a timeline, right? So we started with our objectives, where we want to go, what we're trying to achieve, right? Then we have the piece related to understanding where we're at. So that is metering. What kind of equipment do we have in place? What kind of new equipment do we need? What kind of which equipment needs to be upgraded, right? Infrastructure. How does my building look like? Uh, are there wired connections everywhere? Can I count on the local network to do this, or do I need to source an independent network access? Then there is IT. Which firewall rules need to be changed? How are people going to log into this thing? The network question is also related to IT. Encryption protocols, how is data going to be transferred? Are all these protocols authorized by IT? Then there is, where is the data going to live? Do we need the data to live in servers in a specific country or not? Who owns the data, et cetera, et cetera. Then we get to installation, right? And here we want to keep the disruptions to the minimum. So we we do this as smoothly as possible. We want to leverage using our on-site team as much as we can, but sometimes we know we will need to engage with external contractors, including software developers. Then there is a commissioning, validating that data, creating that operations and maintenance manual for the system so that it keeps delivering year after year, right? And then there is that management process, right? Setting those KPIs, establishing that baseline, and using the system year after year, right? To find inefficiencies, to create action plans for different things around the facility or facilities, et cetera, et cetera. So just a nice way of summarizing a different perspective on what we discussed before. So everything I said here, we have summarized it in a checklist that we call the interval data readiness checklist, which we will distribute via email after the webinar. We will also make it available on the website where the recording of the webinar is going to be. And with that said, that's it for me. I wanted to thank you for your attention and wish you the best of luck in your energy management journey. Take care.